Happy to be here and appreciate everybody participating. We're Ashley and Andrew Brietzke of Dogo Dogos down in South Texas, east of San Antonio. So I guess if you guys want to start off with the interview.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Just go ahead and give some on your history and how you guys got into hunting, whether you grew up in it or just how you just really got into hunting.
Okay.
Well, I mean, like growing up, there wasn't as many feral hogs as there are now. Like I was born '89, and then kind of like during the mid '90s, going into late '90s, did a lot of coonhound hunting with my dad. Learned a little bit about working dogs then, and just was really kind of infatuated with hunting with hounds. That was a big deal. And then you know, I guess towards 2000s, you know, the early millennial years, there's kind of a big push in feral hog population. There seemed to be a lot more that were kind of making their way into our part of the country. They were becoming a lot more of a nuisance. That was when you really kind of started to hear about them, you know, as far as, you know, both the nuisance and also as kind of like a sporting game that people could hunt around here. I mean, there's been hogs around here since the 80s and even before that, and there's been people hunting them for just as long, but I guess it was really around the early 2000s when there was really kind of a population boom, and it seemed like everybody started kind of getting into working dogs and using them on hogs. It became a much more common deal. I guess 2001 would be around the time I went on my first hog hunt, and then by 2002, I mean, it was kind of just a habit. It was just 3 or 4 times a week, school nights, whatever. You know, just hunt as much as possible. I had a yard full of hunting dogs, just something that I did from then all the way through to high school. And then you know, around 2007, I moved off and then went to college and kind of cut back on my hunting. That probably 4-year span was probably the least that I'd hunted, you know, since starting out. And then as soon as I graduated college, kind of looked to get back into it. A year after, Ashley and I moved in together, and after living together for about 2 years, we kind of wanted something that would be like a project for us to kind of get into together, something that would be, you know, that we could do as a couple and that we enjoyed. And with both of us kind of having a background into working dogs, I mean, we really thought that this would be a really nice thing to do. And we knew that whatever breed that we got into, that we'd really kind of want to put as much time as possible into them and really kind of give it all as much effort as we could. So with that said, I mean, we really kind of weighed out our options for a long time before picking the Dogo and deciding that was the route that we were going to go. And then, you know, once we did, I mean, ever since then, for the last 6 years now, it's kind of been our little mini obsession, I guess. But it's been fun. It's been a great project. It's brought us, you know, really close, and we've got to see a lot of great things together. And it's been a really cool project. And to be able to do it with your spouse, I mean, it's been a really incredible experience. That's a little bit of background on us and how we got into this.
Now, where your first Dogo?
We went to Flying G Kennels out in Oklahoma. We bought 2 females from them about 18 months apart, and then we also purchased a female from Daryl Hart's. So that's kind of where we got our first 3 females.
Everything after that, we've kind of just been kind of breeding for our own use and keeping as many as possible, and then just kind of working through. But those would be like a big staple of where our yard is those first 3 females.
And then you guys primarily use your Dogos for what purpose?
I mean, really for us, the only purpose that we use our Dogos for, besides of course as a companion and a watchdog, you know, first and foremost, I mean, they're a hunting dog, and they're a hunting dog geared specifically for feral hogs. That they're designed to find them and hold them until we're able to get there. And they should be able to do this in all conditions, all different types of terrain, year round. I mean, of course, we never try to put expectations on a dog that are too high or we're asking too much of them. But I mean, as far as what a Dogo is or what we expect out of our Dogos, that's a big part of it. They have to be able to hunt.
Yeah, we like them. We want them. The purpose of having them is to produce hogs on a consistent basis, but to also have a stable temperament as well, to be a companion dog, to be able to live, you know, at home. Yeah.
Got a couple of requests for you to uplift your voice, Ashley. They said Andrew's fine. You need to upraise your voice a little bit.
Okay.
I would guess project louder would be the proper term. And then, so everyone's got their own idea of what a dogo should be or how it should hunt, or just their different ideas of what that is. What is your idea of the perfect dogo?
Well, I guess a hunting dog that's capable of finding and catching its own hogs, having the ideal temperament, you know, but also all those things to standard with pigmentation, the head, you know, as close to standard as you can get. The perfect dogo, it'd be hard to say that exists.
I mean, you'd ask that, and you'd probably get
A bunch of
every different person in this session will probably give you a different answer on that. But I think as far as like for us, what we would consider perfection reached is, you know, and we'll be talking about this probably a couple different times during the interview, but I think everybody's program, no matter what your goal is, you have an ideal state that you're working towards, something that you have in your mind that you know, you probably haven't seen that dog yet because it's perfection, but that's always what you're kind of working towards and trying to get to the ideal state. And I mean, I guess for us, when perfection, it wouldn't be so much as it would be automation, like, you know, an automatic dog that you can turn loose, you know, work anything within 1,000 yards, just produce hogs just on a consistent basis in all types of environments. As far as the physical qualities, I mean, what we would consider perfect, a lot of people would say is kind of undersized or maybe not a real representation of what the dogo breed should look like. But we do feel though, and you know, of course, when you read the translations that came from Argentina and how much is spent talking about the head, we are very strong believers that a dogo, no matter how their size is, the head is super important. I mean, we want to be able to, you know, somebody to see our dogs from, you know, a mile away and say that's a dogo, you know, based on the head. Just that's very important to us. But as far as the other physical characteristics, if the dog is super functional and super athletic and a great hunter, that for us is on the right path for what we consider perfection.
We like that, I guess, when we think of the ideal state and the automaticness that we like, you know, we like that to see that from an early age, that natural want to hunt, natural want to engage contact, and that all, you know, I guess what we would consider a successful litter is, you know, a healthy litter from the beginning, and then everything else is on us to give them that exposure, you know, to make the best of it, to see if we can pull that out of them.
So being that you guys are in dogos now and that's all you primarily hunt, what made you go only dogos versus, let's say, other hunting breeds?
Well, I think a lot of it is, you know, like Andrew stated, his history. He's hunted with every kind of cross and breed and, you know, brand of dog that you can. And we had, you know, hunted with Catahoulas and blackmouth curs and hounds and crossed up dogs, but it was a project that we wanted to get into. We had a half dogo that we really enjoyed. We just wanted a one do-it-all dog that can find and catch their dog, and that's also practical.
I think kind of going into that, it wasn't, I mean, we knew whatever breed that we were going to kind of get into and kind of focus on and put all our resources into. We knew that we just wanted one breed. And I mean, a lot of different reasons for that. The big one being is, like Ashley said, you know, hunting with so many different people and everybody's yard's different, everybody's program's different. But it seemed like the ones that kind of had the longevity and were able to actually improve the quality of dogs in their yards were people that had, you know, either one breed or one specific cross, and then just kind of went with that and didn't try to, I mean, if you're crossbreeding dogs and you're continually crossbreeding dogs, you never can get towards, like we talked about, with that ideal state, because your base is always changing. I mean, if you breed, you know, a half and half to something else, I mean, you're going to get such a shift from where you started out. You're not really able to kind of replicate true. Whereas with a purebred program, I mean, if you if you stick with it and you add in the right parents and you know what you're looking for, you can kind of continually improve on what you're doing, and you have goals in your mind that you're working towards. You're not kind of losing that original piece so much as you are when you're crossbreeding. So I mean, with that was kind of why we wanted to go with a pure breed. And then as far as like why we chose the Dogo, and then why we went to an all Dogo pack, I mean, like Ashley said, a big part of it was if we were going to pay the money that was being, for a Dogo pup, it's a much higher startup cost than it would be for most working dogs. I mean, we could probably go and purchase 3 or 4 working dogs that are, of good background, that are, maybe crossbred, Heinz 57, whatever, when we started out, and would have still been, if not paying less money than we did for getting one Dogo pup. So, I mean, we wanted it to where the dog had to be independent. It couldn't rely on other cur dogs, something else to do the work for them, put in 90% of the effort, and then they come in for the last 10%, and yet they get all the glory and kind of get seen as a working dog, when really they're just kind of riding the backs of other working dogs and the hard work that they put in. But, I mean, and when we started off, it was, we've been hunting all Dogo. We like Ashley said, we have not been hunting all Dogo the whole 6 years that we've started this. And it's been, we're in our third year doing this. And in the third quarter, we've got a couple months left to wind this out. And the first year, I think, was kind of like a proof to ourselves that we could do it, that it's something that we could see if it was even, feasible. And then the second year was kind of like a little bit more reassurance to us. And then also as well, it was kind of showing a little bit to the Dogo community, like, it is possible for these dogs to do this. They do have it in them. But I think here we are in the third year of it, and it's not even so much about proving anything to anybody anymore, or proving anything to ourselves, or showing off, or anything like that. I think at this point, seeing what we've seen, I mean, it's just a really practical way to hunt, especially around here. It works really well. There's a lot of reasons that go into that we can get into later on. But I mean, for something that kind of started out as just making our dogs have to own it and to be, responsible for our success, and what it's carried over into, to where it's, not only are they able to do it and they can prove that they can do that, it's actually quite functional, and it works really well for us.
I think it works so well also is because we do a lot of walk hunting. We've learned about the dog. When you're on the ground, your dogs very well. Each dog's individuality, their every quirk, every mannerism, what they're going to do next. And you miss a lot when you're not on the ground with the dogs. So I think that works for us as well, hunting the Dogo.
Yeah.
Compared to the other breeds that we had started out with.
Yeah.
And when we went strictly Dogo, it also proved to us that it almost seemed like it was more practical, more useful, that it does work, especially when we went all Dogo. Because when we were kind of mixing the dogs and building up our program, when we had our first litter and hunted all of those dogs together, it really moved like a fine, tuned machine. Everybody was on the same page, same wavelength. Everybody's mind kind of works the same way. It really worked well.
And I think that's kind of a big part of like what we were saying too, as far as like everybody's, have all one breed. Another big thing about that, it's not just about improving. You have your own kind of guidelines that you fall into, improve from generation to generation. It's also too, like she's saying, everybody's on the same wavelength. They communicate with each other real well. A Dogo knows how to read another Dogo's body language much better than, a crossbred dog or a dog that's very different in their genetic makeup. I mean, it just, whenever you have everybody on the same page and they're all the same breed and, even related, it makes it real easy for everybody to kind of work together as a team, and just going to all, even if it wasn't all Dogos, but just having a pure yard of everybody kind of understanding what, how to read each other. That's helped us out a lot. That's been a big part of our success too, I think.
Now, generally speaking, do you guys see a difference in when the Dogo was first created to do a certain task versus now? Or do you think we're moving towards having a better, well put together Dogo?
So I can't really speak as far as like what was in the beginning. And I'm not the best as far as like being a historian for the Dogo overall. What I can only speak to is, you know, and I think kind of going into the history of the Dogo and everything, I think it should be mentioned, you know, a couple of weeks ago, Lee Rankin, a gentleman who, him and his family did a whole lot to bring the Dogos into South Texas and to kind of put them into that working environment, and really kind of was the first, you know, they did a lot, you know, to kind of pioneer using the Dogos for working dogs here in this part of the world. He passed away a couple of weeks ago, but just him and that group and what they started, you know. And then like around the early 2000s, a gentleman, Mike Chrisman, he was an admin on a chat board, Texas Outdoors. And it was very like a South Texas kind of all the way up to the hill country type deal. And there was people on there that ran dogs and hunted hogs, and they kind of had their own page, and he was the moderator. But he was kind of well known for you know, hunting these Dogos and using them as catch dogs. And him and Shane Carver, Doug Frazee, more so in my part of the world, a little bit further north, you know, he was hog eradicator back then. But I mean, these guys in the early 2000s were kind of the first to kind of hunt hogs and use these Dogos as catch dogs. And that was kind of where they first started kind of getting notoriety, getting known. Between them talking about them on the message boards, and then, you know, Mike would write articles for Bait Solid. And I mean, these guys just hunted a lot, and they caught a lot of big hogs. They hunted a lot of cropland. It was really good promotion, and a good kind of start for the working Dogo around here. I will say that, you know, that was kind of like my first introduction, was the few hunts that I went on with folks like that had the Dogos, and seeing what those dogs were then and kind of seeing where we're working towards now within the last 15 years. And I mean, it's kind of been, you know, not that I've hunted with Dogos throughout, you know, the 18 years that I've been hunting, but I would hunt with somebody that had Dogos a couple times, and then may go 2 or 3 years without seeing one in the woods again, and then, you know, hunt with somebody else. And there's kind of been a nice transition from, it just seemed like what Dogos were asked to do when I first started hunting with them anyway, was they would either ride in the box or they'd be used as leading catch dogs. You'd want to turn them in and kind of as close as you could, you know, within a couple 100 yards. Typically, more often than not, I mean, they were really big, like 100-pound males, had big cinder block heads, a much greater size difference than what you would see now. I think that in the last 15 years, I really do. And I know if there's anything that, you know, other Dogo people watching this might kind of disagree with us here, is you know, I think that we're really going towards the right direction a lot faster than people kind of want to say. A lot of people for some reason say that they feel like the Dogo breed is worse off now than it was, you know. And I don't agree with that at all. If you look at the standard and how much more the Dogo today fits into that standard than what it did back then. I mean, the size was not paid as much attention to. People were just wanting as big a dog as they could make. So I think the size has been brought down a lot. You know, something that you used to hear about all the time, and not even 15 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, skin issues. There was some these are all things that are still within the breed. And it's a lot easier probably now to find a problematic pup, you know, a deaf pup or a pup with mange nowadays. But you have to realize too, the amount of Dogos in the last 15 years, you know, throughout the country is just way more now. There wasn't near as many Dogos 15 years ago as there are now. It's much easier to find them. But at the same time, I think if you take a percentage of that, the amount of pups you have that are healthy is a much higher percentage. You're not having near as many of the health issues that we used to have 15 years ago that ran rampant. Like I said, again, size has gotten a lot better. They look more like a working dog. And I think too, just kind of pointing it out, temperament has made one of the biggest knocks. You know, people knock the Dogos outside of the breed as being a dog that, you know, may not be as gamey as a Pit or American Bulldog. But a lot of the dogmen around here weren't using Dogos back then. One, because of the price, but two as well. I mean, a high percentage of them were super dog aggressive. I mean, to the point where you couldn't hunt them with other dogs. You know, if they weren't the only catch dog and you weren't turning them loose right there at the hog, I mean, more than likely you were going to have issues with dog fighting. They were really kind of hot bred type dogos. And it seems like in the last 15 years, we've made a more stable athletic dog. It's got a better temperament, is healthier. And I mean, I don't think we've lost a whole lot of the workability either. I mean, people talk about how dogos back then were more automatic as far as catching. And I think that if Ashley and I, if we had to start from square one today, we'd have a much better chance now, even than when we started 6 years ago, of going out and finding a couple dogs that would naturally work and it not be as much of a burden or an issue to try to locate that.
Probably due partly to the education that's pushed as well, the organization of like the Dogo Club or something like that, and maybe more dogo policing on the internet. You know, that's probably helped.
Now, we know about the term courageous above all. Now, to you guys, what exactly would you put in that category as courageous above all? Like, what would you define as courageous above all?
Well, I think in the way that I read that, where he puts it in, it doesn't so much necessarily about gauging the level of courage as much as it is the dog has to have courage before you even evaluate anything else. If the dog does not show that courage or that willingness to want to work and to, you know, protect the family or you know, be a dog that has a little bit of yeah, there's I mean, so many different terms you can use to describe courage, and like I said, I don't think it's so much about gauging it as much as it is the dog has to have some kind of willingness to work more so than anything else. It has to want to interact with prey or you know, kind of.
Yeah, I think that it just takes priority over the whole physical design of the dog. It's just showing that it's the priority. You look at that first. That's kind of how I think that we look at that.
Which, I mean, I guess it makes sense because for what the dogo is supposed to be used for and what the brothers designed when they made this breed was they wanted a dog that they could be able to use, and if you don't have that drive, that push, then everything else doesn't matter anyway. It doesn't matter how structurally sound the dog is. It just if they don't have the ability to want to work, they don't have that natural drive, which I guess for us, it would be more so drive than courage, especially for our situation. I mean, they don't necessarily go hand in hand, but I would say that drive for us, but you've got to have that little bit of fire before anything else matters. And if it does have that little bit of fire, or you've got multiple dogs that have that little bit of what they call courage, then you start looking at the other aspects of the dog, the physical aspects, and maybe like the intelligence and other factors, and then you go. But the first thing you got to evaluate is, does the dog have the courage at the start anyway?
Okay, well, we can generally call you guys breeders, right? Because I believe you're on your fourth litter or something like that. So when you are looking into the aspects of breeding, how do you choose your stud dog and your brood bitch? Like, what do you look for temperamentally wise, workability wise, structure wise? Like, what is your standard?
I think that when we look at breeding, our goal is to breed the best woods dog. Everybody has their own definition of what the ideal state is, what their program is geared more towards. We think best woods dogs. Breeding in itself is an experiment. You just always want to look for what would make the best, you know, on your yard, and that's for us is best woods dogs. So things that we would take into, or qualities that we would take into consideration, you know, the courage, but you don't want to maybe too hot, stable, workability, that they can work inside of a pack. Structure, we look for more streamline. Speed is what we need as well. The head is very important to us. And physical, being able to hold up to high, you know, we put a lot of work into our dogs. They have to put up with a lot of physical activity. So we want them to be able to hold up to that. They need to be able to hold up.
I guess the difference in our program, which, I mean, we're fortunate in this aspect, is that we're able to keep so many of our pups. But I mean, it's just when you're breeding for personal use, the reasoning and the how hard you're going to criticize or critique something before you actually go through with it. I mean, we're in a situation to where if depending on where we were needs-wise, and we kind of needed some up-and-coming dogs, some prospects to hunt for the next year, if our pack was getting a little slim, I mean, we would breed the best that we can, that's available to us, whether on our yard or somewhere else, and then we would raise those dogs and then just kind of keep as many as possible and see what works. But when you're keeping an entire litter or keeping a big majority of a litter, I mean, you don't have to get so caught up in the details of both parents beforehand.
I think it matters much more of what you're going to do with those pups. It matters, you know, the breeding and the breed worthiness and best to best, but it matters so much more. What are you going to do with these pups when they're born? Are you going to, you know, work through them, that type of thing? I think that is a huge priority as well.
I mean,
and it's always based on our current needs of what our yard needs. You know, who do we have? Our pack. Do we need more males, more females? What type do we need? Do we need big blocky males? Do we need fast females? You know, things like that.
And breeding it's such a crapshoot anyway, you know, especially in any kind of working animal type deal. I mean, you can breed two mediocre dogs and they throw just a stellar litter, and vice versa with stellar parents and getting a mediocre litter. But I mean, I think, you know, as long as you're keeping as many as you can and evaluating them and trying to keep what fits your needs best, like Ashley was saying, whatever you're needing at that time, and just kind of constantly evolving and seeing how that next generation kind of fits into the grand scheme of things. But we really don't get too scientific with picking out what we're going to breed. We just try to breed the best that we have available. And of course that does tend to correlate to having a higher percentage of dogs that work out. And then you just kind of go from there.
Okay, and then along those lines, when do you determine that that female or that male is breed worthy? Like, is there a certain aspect that they present you're like, okay, yes, I want to carry that on into my future offspring to hunt it and to do whatever you guys want with that particular offspring or pup?
Well, I think everybody starts out at square one, and you know, they're going to be a hunting dog before they're anything. And we're going to kind of start them off, start moving them into the system, letting them start hunting, showing us their abilities, showing what comes natural, and the ones that, you know, kind of progress and show us that they're able to do this. And then when you start getting into the breeding aspect of it, they have to usually have some other qualities besides just being an automatic hunting dog. Everything's got to be tied in together. But the more natural they are in the woods, the better they are phenotypically. If structurally they're sound and they show that they can hold up doing this for, you know, year in, year out. And then two, I mean, as far as like when we make that decision, a lot of that kind of plays into where we're at in our yard. I mean, there's dogs that we might breed one year that, you know, a couple years before that we probably wouldn't because we weren't in that much of a bind, or, you know. But again, though, this is all because we're keeping these dogs for personal use, and we're going to evaluate these young dogs and you know, keep the best that we can, and those are the only ones that will move on into our breeding program. But I mean, we've been fortunate. I mean, our first litter, we found a really nice male that we like. We've always kind of been keeping an eye open for as long as we could for good quality females, and, you know, breeding this male that you know, has shown us, you know, for years now that he's capable of doing this, and breeding him to high quality females, our success rate has been high. And we haven't really gotten into a point to where we're just now kind of getting into the second and third generations and kind of figuring out which direction we're going to go. But at the same time, we're not super pressed right now. And it's not like we need to find that next stud dog or anything. So we just kind of let the dogs promote themselves, and the ones that show us that, you know, they really are the best that we have, or better than what we can find somewhere else, those are the ones that we'll be using in our program later on.
Something that we like to tell people is that there's nothing wrong with just a good hunting dogo. Not everything on your yard has to be a breeder. We like to say that our dogs all start off as hunting dogos, and they do something. They promote themselves of why they would be a breeder, why. And the best dog on your yard currently is what is going to set the standard of what is breed worthy. Because like Andrew said, maybe 2 or 3 years, you know, you didn't need that dog and something happened, so he's probably the next bred worthy dog. you know, it just depends on a lot is what you're going on in your yard currently.
I know you guys said you guys breed on a case by case of what you need and what you're trying to add in, but is there like a particular instance where you guys look to outcross? Like, when do you make that decision to outcross? Like, you have your particular set of dogs you have in your yard, and you're got those dogs that you're breeding together. When do you make that decision to say, okay, what I'm producing here isn't working, I need to get some fresh blood in here?
I think a lot of that is when we see something on somebody else's yard that we like more than our own. That's your first sign that you, and whatever you're trying to do with your program, whatever your mission is, whatever your ideal state is, if you see somebody else out there, no matter the line, what their dogs are is more of what you think you need to be in tune with, then I mean that's really a big sign that go ahead and outcross and see.
If you're looking at the yard and there's something else out there that you like better, definitely look at that.
We've been very open as far as, like, you know, the lines and the background and the structure type of a dog. We don't really break that down too hard, but like I said, we have an ideal state in mind, and that's what we're working towards. So if a dog is bred a certain way that's not maybe the same in line with how our dogs are bred, but that dog looks more like what we're wanting, it looks more like something that we need to kind of bring into our situation to kind of try to get the positives that dog may be having that we might be lacking in some areas, then absolutely we'll outcross to that dog. I think that, I mean, in any kind of working line of animal or show line of animal, you know, of any species, people will really kind of spend a large deal of time kind of going over the pedigrees of that dog and studying it to a point where, you know, you're maybe overlooking certain things about the physical aspect of the dog or the dog itself. I mean, if you're choosing between two dogs to breed and one dog checks a lot more boxes for you than the other, but the other dog is maybe bred something a little bit more to your liking, we would always anyway kind of go with the dog that checks more boxes for us than how the other dog's bred. I mean, for us, that's more important. But
I think just keeping that idea of what your ideal state is, that's your goal, instead of picking and choosing maybe bloodlines or, you know, or structure. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff like that. So if you look at your yard and you think that you're missing something, maybe look for that.
Now, are there certain things that you guys seen? I know you've only had 4 litters, but you've been breeding way before Dogos. Are there certain things that you see can be fixed in one breeding, or it takes several breedings to fix?
I think that on that, and you don't really, I don't know how many things you can fix as much as you can change. You can change the probability of it.
Yeah.
I mean, when something's in a dog's background, if it's in their genetic makeup, I mean, odds are it's going to reoccur somewhere down the line. It'll make itself prevalent again. And a lot of times outcrossing is a fast way for that to happen. You know, if you're working on your own line and you're slowly trying to breed out a trait and you think you have it, you know, kind of all the way to where it's recessed, and then you outbreed or outcross to a different dog, there might be something in that dog's genetic makeup that pulls it right back out, and you're where you started to in the first place. So, I mean, you always look to change it. You want to reduce any kind of traits that kind of go against what you're working towards. I mean, as far as like getting rid of something entirely, it's really kind of hard to plan on.
And I don't think you're able to know that without at least once keeping an entire litter, because it's not 50-50 best of each parent, you know, mixed amongst the whole litter. Every single pup is a different combination of small things from that parent. And if you're going to keep the entire litter, or if you want to know, especially in one cross, what traits were passed on to each individual pup, you're never going to know that until you raise them. And sometimes you don't know that until at least a year old. They don't actually show you who they are, what they are, until a year old. And then you want to pick the best, of course, traits in that individual pup. But I mean,
almost like you got to do it for generations too.
Yes.
Because I mean, you could make a cross. That cross worked out exceptionally well. You know, all the pups that you kept in there, none of them show whatever trait that you're trying to get rid of. And then you breed, you know, maybe the best pup in that class, you know, years down the road. And that next litter that what you breed it to, they might all be having the same problem that you had in the grandparents, that you were working on trying to alleviate. You never know.
You can change things, you can reduce things, but you won't be able to eliminate it completely.
I guess that's why starting off with such a strong base is important. You want to breed the dogs that are already close to your ideal state, because if you're trying to work there from further away, there's always going to be different roads that you're going to see with generations. They're not always going to just progressively get to where you're trying to get to. You're always going to have some outliers or something that kind of goes a different direction, and you've got to be able to hold on to those dogs to see where that's going, and then you can decide where to move on from there.
Now, when exactly do you guys make the decision to remove a dog from your program? Like, say it isn't producing well, or just when do you make that decision?
As far as like from our breeding program?
Yes.
Well, I mean, like Ashley said, I mean, there's such a big range between, a coal and a breeder, and a big majority of dogos especially, but kind of any hunting dog, or there's a lot of dogs that live within that range. Just because a dog is not up to breeding quality does not make them a coal. Like Ashley was saying earlier, a hunting dogo, especially on our yard, a lot of our dogs, they're great hunters. We don't ever plan on breeding them. If we got in a bind and we needed to pass on the lines that we have, we'd consider it. But as of now, they're just hunting dogs. They're not breeders, and there's no problem with that. I think that, like we talked about earlier, it's more about the dog working himself from a hunter into that breeding category, and then staying in that breeding category, consistently being able to produce hogs, to perform at the top level, and then that's what stays a breeder on our yard. But I mean, as far as, a dog removing themselves or showing us something to make them, feel like they're not worthy of breeding.
I mean, they have to earn to be in the breeding program. Not everybody's just automatically going to be a breeder. They can be in a breeding program and fall right back to just a hunting, but they can be a good hunting doggo. But like Andrew said, that is a wide range between coal and a breeder. They can live there.
Yeah, that's where a big majority of our dogs are, and that's not something that we feel like is a negative. I mean, that's just kind of and if you are breeding the best possible dogs you have, not if you've got 10 dogs and 2 or 3 of them are really that top tier quality, that doesn't necessarily mean that the other 7 or 8 are trash. It just means that, you have better quality to work with. So why put these in that situation where they could possibly pass on something that's mediocre? Just keep them and continue to work with them, and then just kind of keep evaluating your situation.
Now, when you guys bring up meat, I know that you've said that sometimes you'll keep a dog on your yard. Not you specifically, just generally speaking, you'll keep a dog on a yard even if they're not good producers. Let's say you have a dog that's mediocre but produces like excellent offspring, but himself or she herself is subpar, but will do what a dogo needs to do, but needs a little bit of working. What do you do in that instance?
Probably, I mean, if we had a mediocre dog that was producing great pups, I would raise those pups out and try to go, start from there. I probably wouldn't go back and maybe breed that mediocre dog, but also, like we said, we breed for ourselves, what our current needs are. If we needed another batch and we needed that, and that was the only option, we'd probably breed a mediocre dog again. But if I got great out of a mediocre dog, I would focus and work on the great.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and then on the flip side, what if you had like the inverse of that? What if you had like an excellent dog that was producing subpar pups? What would you do in that instance?
I think that's kind of in basically the same answer. You breed for your own use. You're keeping as many dogs as you can to see what you're getting. I think on both of those, though, it should be noted that, and not just in dogs and all kinds of working animals, so many champions and just excellent, stellar, whatever, have been thrown from mediocre breedings. Parents that, it wasn't supposed to work, but for some reason it did. And, whether it be the entire litter or one dog in particular, but you get stellar results from that. And I mean, how many people have bred excellent grand champion dogs together, world champion dogs, and the offspring weren't as good as they, supposedly should have been. And I think that the only way you really know, it's a crapshoot. Breeding's always a crapshoot. And if you're keeping as many of these pups as you can and you're working through them, if you find a mediocre dog and that's the only dog you have access to and they're throwing exceptional, you know, offspring, that doesn't seem like a big issue to breed it. If you have a dog that's a super stellar dog and maybe their first or second litter were, you know, they had some subpar pups, but at the same time you're keeping these dogs and working through them and you're thinking that eventually you'll, I mean, if we did a breeding and the whole breeding was bad, we probably, you know, we're not going to probably go back and make that same exact cross again. That's another part of it too. You know, you breed a mediocre dog to a mediocre dog and you don't get a good litter. I mean, there's nothing saying you couldn't take that dog, breed it to a different female or a different male, and then, you know, the next litter, they're all superb. I mean, it really is just, you have to take what you get and work through it. That's kind of the biggest thing on breeding in general with dogos, at least on our end. You can't really, and if it was that easy as breeding best to best, you're going to get best. Everything's got a nice straight road and you can just constantly progress. I mean, we would all be there by now. Everybody would be where they want to be. Their yard would have the kind of dogo that they've been trying to get to. It just isn't. So you just have to kind of take as much of your young prospects as you can and just kind of keep looking and try to find that true north and work towards it.
I know you guys like primarily breed for yourselves and to keep things on your yard, so you're usually keeping your whole litter to sort through them. Now, when do you make a determining factor of when you're going to keep that pup or what they showed you? I know you said it could take up to like 6 months, a year, or so forth. But when do you make that determining factor of, okay, this pup I keep on my yard, this pup, you're not so great, well, I'll give you to somebody else?
Well, I like to tell people, I mean, the yard changes on a week-to-week basis. Everybody's changing. So if you have a litter, we try to make it as stress-free. We just let them grow. We try to do a lot of running around outside, social, you know, having them hang out, learn how to be on the yard. Everybody's, you know, on the same team. So we're always evaluating these pups. But I think, so I guess we start pups around 6 to 8 months, I guess, taking them to the woods. So that'll teach us even a little bit more. I mean, but you truly don't know a dog, I guess, I would say until about a year. But how we evaluate that, I guess, is we're always evaluating from the get-go. Not too much pressure on them or anything, but just in their natural state, we're constantly looking.
You hear a lot of people talk, and they're right in a lot of aspects about how the dogo mentally matures slower than other breeds. And yes, that is true in a lot of cases as far as, you know, some of the
behavior.
Yeah.
Like that puppy behavior, I think, is
the relationships that they establish, both with you and with other dogs. It's very much from like a young child's perspective for a long time. A 6 or 7 month old pit bull puppy is a little bit more of a grown dog in his mind than a 6 or 7 month old dogo pup. It's just how they're wired. So a lot of people, because of that, you know, they're big advocates as far as starting dogos at a year or later, and kind of that's when you start introducing them to that. And that might not necessarily be wrong, but for what we're needing, I mean, a year is a long time for that's a big part of that dog's life that would be spent doing nothing on our yard until, you know, we start transitioning them. So and what Ashley does a great job of, and I mean, we both try to spend as much hours as possible, but, you know, once they get to that 4 or 5 or 6 month old stage, we're going to start kind of taking them out and just building up what we call their woods IQ, just letting them run around, get familiar with the sights and the sounds and the smells of the woods, get them realizing that there's other creatures out there. It's not just them. Basically, every place we hunt has cattle on it, so you also want a young age exposure to livestock. But I mean, we do start our dogs very young, and we don't expect any kind of interaction. There's no expectations put on them, but we just let them, like Ashley said, we let them mentally develop, They figure out where their roles are. They figure out, you know, what abilities they have that they want to use. And then we're just always constantly evaluating without putting any pressure on the pup. We're just always evaluating and seeing where they're growing, seeing mentally how they're growing. And
I think us going with the all Dogo pack as well, learning how, you know, to communicate amongst the pack, where they are, I think that's huge for them as a small pup. I think it helps them as they grow and as they transition, you know, to their position in the team. And just, yeah, that Woods IQ is huge for us and what we do with our Dogos. So instead of, you know, just letting them sit there for a year, we like to get them out, moving their body, using their nose, realizing that they're capable, and, you know, feeling confident, having that independence to venture off, you know, 50 yards, 100 yards by themselves as a young dog is really going to help us out in the long run.
Now, being that you guys hunt in all Dogo pack, is there like a preferred method in how you hunt them? Do you run them all together? How do you handle like larger lands?
so when we're hunting, usually when we're working with just like a pack of just all kind of veteran dogs, which it seems like for the last 2 years, we've always had some kind of young dogs on our yard that we've been working in. But like if a typical hunt for us would be 3 to 4 Dogos max. Everybody kind of is on the same page, and basically all of our hunting's on foot. That works for us. You're able to cover a lot more ground that way.
Able to go where the hogs are, because not every road leads to hogs. And you get to see everything, view everything. Not all, the dogs aren't always in view, but you know, you get to see their reaction to a lot of stuff, especially with the young dogs.
I would say to like folks that hunt even with cur type dogs, or they have strike dogs on the ground, you know, when you're road hunting and it really is nice, it's convenient to be in that pickup and just kind of have to follow the roads and hope that you come across one. But even with like a great pack of cur dogs, you miss so much of what's going on. You're not able to kind of see everything. You're driving over spots that it seems like, you know, on foot, the dogs are paying attention to you a little bit. They kind of know, you know, about where you're at or where you're moving. But like when you're in a truck, it just seems so much more. Even good packs of like hunting type South Texas dogs, they're way more kind of pinged in on the vehicle and where it's going than actual hunting, you know. And I feel like there's so many hunts that, you know, if you would just turn the truck off and just kind of get out and walk. And I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of dog you're hunting. Really the best way to make a dog, no matter the breeding or however, is just kind of really getting out behind it and just wearing out a pair of boots and walking that dog through the woods and seeing what they do. I think that for us, it really allows us to kind of get a much better scope of what our dogs are actually doing.
Of course, we always try to set them up for success. Quality of rest is huge. You know, you want to, if you have a big hunt coming up, you want to let them rest maybe a day or two before, you know the property. We always ask, you know, where do you want to fight a hog? You don't know where the hogs are. You know, you never know what situation you're going to get in. But if you got into a group of hogs, where are they probably going to run? Just try to, you know, time of day, what way is the wind blowing, all kinds of, you just try to set them up for success. You want these dogs to succeed, but every time we're out in the woods, we assume that we're going to come across hogs, a group of hogs, or a lone boar hog.
I mean, it's simple, but it you know, it does need to be said that the more factors that you can put on your side, the higher your success rate's going to go up. So, I mean, we do analyze a lot of how we're going to do this. And there are some hunts, we've had some great hunts where it was just load up 3 or 4 dogs and go, and there really wasn't a whole lot of rhyme and reason to it. But it does seem like for sure that the more you correlate and plan and kind of figure out what your game plan is, the more likely that you're going to have success.
Now, being that you do run all Dogos, has there ever been a point in which you ran a different style, or has it always been all Dogos since the get-go?
Since we've started, it's been all Dogo. Now, there's been hunts for sure. If there was enough of them, we'd have probably changed our style by now. But I mean, there certainly has been a couple hunts where we've loaded up, and it's like, man, if I had a half running walker, half cur dog right now, that I might have been able to find a hog out here. I will say that the biggest kind of bane for hunting an all dogo pack is you get a lot of these big places, especially in South Texas. Some of these, 1,000-acre ranch in South Texas is considered like a small to medium sized place. So for somebody to be like, hey, I've got a 2,000-acre ranch and there's 4 or 5 hogs on it, of course we'll load up and we'll go down there. Yeah, we'll hunt it all day long, but you're gonna hunt it all day long.
And you're gonna hunt
and the success rate's probably not at. You would probably get into hogs a lot faster hunting a different style. But yes, I would say hunting an all. But once we've gotten into an all dogo pack, once you start going that route, it's kind of hard to get away from there and mix it up. And not so much. I mean, we could hunt with other people's dogs, and our dogs would. They would act right. They wouldn't be aggressive or anything like that. It's just. It's kind of hard to blend this with a different kind of style because of the reasons that make it work so successfully, and it's not, I mean, for us, it's an all dogo pack, but I mean, even if you're hunting an all, whatever, but once you get into that kind of rhythm where everybody's, exactly the same, it's just really hard to kind of want to mix that up and hunt with other types of dogs because you're just adding different variables in there. I mean, once you see how nice it is to have everybody be able to read each other.
Yeah, we always say to ourselves, yes, we could have, every other day it's, damn, if we had a dry ground hound, we could have gotten into hogs. But what we tell ourselves is we don't want to chase hogs. We don't want to chase hogs for miles and drive our dogos, to wherever this hog decides to stop, and then it breaks and we chase hogs all night long. And we're chasing dogs that are just running all night long. We really, really like the idea of being able to drop dogs. If there's hogs around, they're going to find them and they're going to grab them right there. There's a lot of our hunts, these hogs don't go far at all once they're engaged. And also the beauty of hunting an all dogo pack is that they're able to handle a hog one-on-one. I mean, that's our ideal dogo is automatic, going to find a hog, finish a track, hold that hog until we get there. So if we get into a group of hogs, we always want to be able to take out 3 dogos and catch 3 hogs, 4 dogos and catch 4 hogs. That's the dream. That's the goal. So being able to catch multiple hogs at once is a great thing. You're not baying up one hog, running it for miles, and it decides to, to stop. Also, there's not a whole lot of commotion, that these are silent hunters. They don't make a lot of noise. There's, a lot of these hogs will sometimes lay down because they're not threatened for miles and miles. So you could, walk the property and come back and maybe get into another hog that decided to lay down instead of run. We can roll out. We've had dogos catch hogs and then we roll out another 400, 500 yards and we are up to that group again because they all slowed down. There is beauty, there is positives to hunting this all dogo.
I think doing this for 18 years, and like the reason that like this has kind of been the big light bulb moment for me and what I feel has been successful for us. I mean, you have 2 big limiting factors as a hunter. And, one of those, of course, is the land, the amount of acreage that you have that you can go in a certain direction. And then 2 is time. And I think with that being said, we got to a place when I started out into this, probably about 6 or 7 years in, to where with the quality of dogs that we had, which were excellent, they were really, kind of the top tier of what we would consider that South Texas type hog dog. When we get to that level, we were realizing that the amount of places that were available to us were very limited, because these were the type of dogs that, even though they were going to start off in a tight cast and work within a couple 100 yards, I mean, eventually the loop's going to get bigger until they find a hog, whether that be 3 or 4 miles away or what have you. It was to a point to where, I mean, you had to be very specific on where you hunted them, and everything had to work out just perfect. So, I mean, smaller lots of land that were maybe holding hogs, it wasn't necessarily a guarantee that you'd be able to hunt that place, because even after you caught one, I mean, these dogs were rolling out and going to the next one, which would be on the neighbor's property 2 or 3 places away. I've seen dogs get shot. I've seen dogs get stolen. I mean, it makes it hard. So I mean, as far as, you know, the longer the range, the more you're going to restrict yourself on what places you can hunt. Also going along with that, you know, as far as time, I think, you know, Garmin and the GPS collar kind of age that came in, it did a really great job of showing people what their dogs were actually doing and how that dog was spending their time. And I saw so many dogs that, you know, so many hours were spent watching dogs try to work out trails and tracks that they were never going to finish. They were never going to find the hog on the other end of that. And you don't really realize that until you're kind of watching these Garmin screens and seeing the circles that the dog makes. And I think with the Dogo, especially an all Dogo pack, you don't really have that time wastage. And it's not that they're not lazy or they're not hustling. It's just that the way their nose is wired, you know, if they're really pushing a track, odds are they're going to find what's on the end of it. There's not going to be that, you know, where they go off for a half a mile and they're gone for 20 or 30 minutes and you're waiting on them to come back, or you're waiting on them to bay. And then, you know, eventually it ends up with them coming back and nothing eventful took place of it. I mean, if our Dogos go, you know, that far, we know more than likely something's about to kick off. There's not that wasted time of, and like Ashley said, we do not want to chase hogs, and the hogs around here, I mean, they've been hunted for, you know, decades. They know what a dog is, and their first instinct is going to be to run. So if your dog's first instinct right off the bat is to catch, it kind of takes that option away from them. And just, you know, being able to hunt, you know, a 200 or 300 or even smaller acre place and take these dogs into it, not have to worry about getting into a long race. It's, you know, you, like Ashley said too, you're trying to catch multiples. So if we can go somewhere, turn out on a small group of sows and catch 3 or 4 right away, and we're still staying within 200 acres, I mean, that is a huge win. We're not having to drive all over the country.
And even those bigger places, you know, you can load up, drive to the other side that kind of looks hoggy, and drop Dogos there as well. We've done it both ways, where we walk the entire place, hours and hours, or we load up, drive to the other side and work the wind. Just, you know, it is practical and it's working, and you know, the split catches is nice as well.
You can hunt a smaller range dog on a big place, but you can't hunt a really long range dog on a smaller place. That's where the correlation lies.
Now, what do you guys do? You have a split bay. Do you go to the one that's closest? Do you go to, like, how do you determine which split bay you're going to go to? Or I should say, since you don't use bay dogs.
Well, I guess our big thing is, I guess your hunting partner is really important. Being able to communicate, you know, without, of course, you would verbally communicate with maybe someone that's not as familiar with the situation, but being able to assess a situation without really even speaking to each other. If you're running close, you know, if you're getting to a close caught hog, you can almost, you know, how many dogs are with this hog? Does this hog sound like a monster or a smaller hog, and he might run past it and I just know to go to that one? It really, really is big on who do you have with you out in the woods. But of course you work up to that. We'll probably go to the closest hog first, try to put it down, and then.
I think, you know, our safety is always going to come first. So, I mean, if there's a hog in a bad spot and there's another dog that's caught somewhere else, it sounds like it's a better situation, then definitely we're going to go together to that bad spot first, so nobody's alone. We're going to take care of that situation and then move on. But I mean, you know, having somebody, and I've hunted with hundreds of people literally over the years, and I mean, just having Ashley, and who, you know, she's on the same page. There's a very, you know, there's a lot of logic that's going through her mind when she's trying to do this. It's very calculated, her movements and stuff, and it's just that makes it a lot easier for me to go do what I need to do and know that she's taking care of what she needs to do and she's being safe. I mean, when you start, and not at all knocking this style, but it just kind of, one, it kind of takes away what you're able to see your dogs do. But then two, as well, it kind of causes for some issues as far as, you know, when you're hunting with big groups of people and everybody, it's the same thing with dogs. Not everybody's on the same page. There's not that communication. You tend to have issues where, you know, things can get a little bit more dangerous the more people you add to the mix, just because it's more of a risk. There's there's more people out there that it causes more of a chance that somebody doesn't know what's going on and
It
get hurt.
seems like more people, more dogs, maybe the more things that could go wrong. But also the beauty of an all dogo pack, being able to know that you dropped 3 or 4 dogos on the ground, you know who's on the ground. It's just a constant assessive situation scenario of, you know, what dogs are with this hog, or what dog's over here? Is there a dog by itself? You just assess that situation and act accordingly.
Now, is there a difference in between male and females when you hunt them? Do you see a difference?
I think we're seeing that.
We're starting to, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I think too, just kind of something that we've noticed that's kind of funny is, you know, when you're kind of trying to get to what we've talked about with the ideal state and all that, it seems that at least in our line, or not even our line, we're not even at that point yet, but just what we've seen in our breedings, that you get a certain type of female more kind of honed in than you do a male. I mean, our last couple of litters, the females that we've had from both litters, you know, physically anyway, they really resembled each other a lot. Maybe a little bit different in abilities, but you know, as far as males, we've noticed, you know, and it could vary from litter to litter, but you know, this litter that we're hunting now, you know, we have a male that's really kind of fired on. He's quick to start, you know, and a lot of our males have been, whereas the females, it's not so much that you've got to pull it out of them, but repetition's more important. You could take a male hunting, has a really good first or second hunt. You could put them up for a month or so, take them back out, and you're pretty much where you are. With females, we've kind of noticed that, you know, you get them going, you put them up for a month or so, and you kind of, not that you've taken a step backwards, but it's not as much of a, it just takes a little bit while for them to click and then become automatic. But I mean, again, though, that could just be, you know, the dogs that we've had in the last couple of litters, and everybody's yard's different. But I will say, though, and this is played true with every kind of hunting dog that I've ever been around, whether it be coon hunting, whether it be any bred hog dog, all different breeds or crosses. It's, you know, females are a little bit more difficult in that aspect, but when you get a female that's automatic, I mean, it is usually, you know, miles ahead of any male dog close to their ability. It's just kind of how it works, is once you get a female that's on, they're usually just a really kind of highly prized thing to have. But it seems like starting a male dog in general is kind of a little bit easier to get going than a female. Male dogo.
Do you guys ever run like all your males together or all your females together, or is it usually like a mixture of both of them together?
Well, I guess of course it depends on that individual dog. We're never going to have where we can't hunt this dog with this dog. We are a team. It's very much like an army. We are going to work as a team. I guess maybe it depends on personality a little bit more of in pups. Who do we start with? You know, we don't maybe want to take 2 fired on dogs at the same time. Maybe we take one that's going to need a little bit more patience with that fired up dog. But yeah, we've hunted for a whole year of 3 males together.
We've had as many as 5 males on the ground together. And
yeah, females together.
But kind of going to what you say about mixing it up, and as far as kind of going back to young dogs, something that we're kind of not realizing, but something that we're doing this last go around with these pups, is it seems like mixing a male and female together when you start young dogs, it's working out better as far as like if you took 2 males or 2 females from the same litter, there's a lot more of that bond to play.
Yeah.
But now that they're kind of getting their hormones a little bit and they're kind of maturing, it seems that if you have a male and a female, there's not so much of that. You know, they don't pay as much attention to each other. Yeah.
On what's going on. Of course, we like to take them with maybe an older dog. With each generation, you can see it a little bit easier how they start. Once you get the ball rolling on the dogo thing, it has become, I don't want to say easier, but you can see it start earlier, more natural with each generation.
Now, do you see and when you would see a dog that's had like so much discipline and training implemented into it that they don't hunt as well, or that they roam freely, or that they just aren't a woods dog acclimating to it as well, just because they've had such that strict upbringing?
I could see that. I could see that maybe it cuts down on the automaticness. You know, when we start pups, we let them run around in the woods. If it was in a different situation, maybe, you know, more of a pet or something, as soon as they're out of sight, you know, they're called back. You know, come back, don't get out of sight, don't go that far by yourself. We ignore them. We don't, you know, speak to them. We let them become more independent to do those things. Also, things that you see maybe in an older dog, maybe over a year and a half, if they're being introduced to hogs, you know, they might check with their owner, is this okay? Am I doing okay? You know, but with, you know, what we would like to see maybe more natural is, you know, once they realize that, yes, this is encouraged, or, you know, are ignored and not disciplined, that there's this natural want to engage contact with these animals. They're designed to, you know, they're designed to hunt hogs. They're designed to engage hogs.
So. Yeah. Not every dogo is going to be an automatic hunting dog. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of kind of building confidence. But I mean, if there's one thing that we've kind of learned, is that we were a little bit surprised at how much of the natural hunting instinct is in dogo lines just kind of throughout. We've taken dogs whose, you know, parents probably weren't, you know, hunted at all, or, you know, maybe they were showed a hog in a pen, but they never really got to see woods time. And the same thing with the grandparents. And, you know, this pup is, you know, 2 or 3 generations removed from being a hunting dog. And then we just kind of send it through the program just like a normal, like we would any of our prospects. And that dog's hunting instinct is as good or better than some of the dogs that we've started that, you know, we've been hunting for a longer time. So, I mean, it's in there. It's definitely in the dogo breed to do that.
It is. And things that we've seen in young dogs, I wonder, you know, there might not be that much opportunity for most dogos to be run on the ground independently, and to see that pulled out of them. It's there. There's a want to look for things, to take tracks and trails and finish out, you know, what's on the other end.
Yeah, I think kind of going what you're asking is kind of maybe geared towards more people that have a dog that, you know, they've put a handle on, and you know, maybe it's a dog that stays in their house or what have you, and they're trying to start it kind of later than we kind of normally would, and get it acclimated to hunting. And I think that, you know, anybody doing that, the first thing you need to have in your mind is, what is my end goal?
Yeah.
What do I want my dog to be able to do? And you just kind of work towards that. And, you know, if you've got a real good recall on your dog, and you don't want your dog running all over the countryside when you turn them loose, when you take them hunting, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're trying to get your dog to where, you know, it'll help catch a hog that other dogs have found, or, you know, what have you, that's great. I mean, any time in the woods with your dog is it's nothing but beneficial for them. Just, you know, kind of have goals in mind of what you're trying to accomplish with that dog, and just kind of, you know, steadily work towards it, and you know, always keep safety in mind.
Now, have you guys ever been in a situation where you'll have homeowners or landowners tell you to come out and hunt their land because they're having such a huge hog problem?
Oh, yes. When we first started this, we probably had maybe a family place and another place, and we dry run over and over and over, just because any outdoor activity with your dogo makes for a happier and healthier dog. And it got us out moving as well, us learning how to be out there. But word of mouth, you know, it's slowly people will call you with problems. And of course, you want to always act accordingly, you know, respect, safety, let them know when you're coming out there, don't trespass, don't trash the place, don't bring people out there that you don't want to, you know, that you didn't let them know. But yes, we've had multiple people that have cattle and people who farm and grow call us with damage.
Well, we're very fortunate to kind of be where we are. If this is like something that you're doing, you know,
Yes.
It's kind of like being a snowboarder or skier and living somewhere next to a ski resort. I mean, the hogs here are such a problem that if you do this long enough, you're going to acquire places. And if you do it the right way, like Ashley said, and you're respectful, you're a good steward of the land, you know, you offer to help the landowner with any projects they might have, you know, anything you can do to kind of stay in good regards with them and be able to kind of keep hunting that place and no pasture, no matter where it is. I mean, a lot of people will pick up a place and hunt it once or twice. If they're unsuccessful, they kind of give up on it. And I mean, you just, any piece of land that you have access to take a dog to is a blessing.
Yes.
And you just kind of keep going there, you keep utilizing that. Like Ashley said, I mean, we'd dry run the same place 50 times in a row if we had to, but that's just a part of hunting. And you just kind of keep building your network. Landowners, farmers love to talk to each other.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've picked up a lot of places by helping one farmer out, and then he kind of advocates us. But, you know, his buddy will be complaining about hogs, and he says who he uses, and, you know, there you go. You pick up another end. But it just really goes back to just trying to be as available as you can to them, and then just doing the best job you can.
Now, do you guys primarily only hunt with your pack, or do you sometimes go out with the other individuals with their dogs? Have your dogs ever had an issue with other males or other same-sex?
We've gone out with other people. We've gone out with their dogs. We tend to maybe take one, maybe two of our dogs, not the whole pack, and try to integrate packs together. Especially it depends on where we're running, how we're running dogs. You know, we might just take a male catch dog. But we 99% of the time, it's usually Andrew and I and our pack of dogs. We like it. Everybody's on the same page. There's less variables. But we have hunted with a few people. We've hunted with other dogos. We've hunted, I just like being in the woods and watching dogs, so I really don't even have to bring my dogs. You know, but yeah, we're always focused on our team, but we have hunted with other people.
Kind of going off that too, with what you asked before, you know, it's a lot easier. The less invasive you can be to somebody's property, the better chance they are to let you hunt it. So if it is just you, and you're not bringing a bunch of buddies with you and their dogs, you're not bringing a four-wheeler or side-by-side, and you're hunting on foot, and it's just you and your wife and your dogs, it's really a lot less invasive than hunting with a big group of people.
Do you guys feel it's equally important to prove your bitches as well as your males? Or
Yes.
Save your bitches until they've proven themselves?
Definitely, but of course it is your current needs, your current situation on the yard. If you have one female, and that's the only thing that you have access to, having another generation of pups, and she hasn't maybe done all of the things, it just, you know, depends on your situation. But as a program and as a team, our males and our females both need to be, you know, good woods hunting dogos that find and catch and hold their own hog and can work as a pack. Maybe we're a little bit, the standard for males is set for whatever the best male is that we have on our yard. If, you know, we have the best male and it really makes any male that comes up behind him have to reach that standard.
I think too, you know, as far as from what we've seen, I mean, a dogo is a dogo regardless of male or female, but I think we have a lot more respect for the females, because if you look at a dogo, and our dogos or any other dogos, you know, male, and what a dogo male should be, it's like they're supposed to be, they're designed to be successful in this type of deal. You know, they can catch a big hog by themselves, and they're physically geared to have the tools to do that. Whereas with the females, I mean, in some cases, they're 25, 30 pounds smaller than the male. They don't have such a, you know, the jaws and the even though the head, the skull shape is you know, similar, their feminine features, they're not as geared up for battle. So to see a female that, even though she's smaller than the male counterparts, and she's still giving it everything she has, and she can still hold a bigger hog by herself, to me that's more impressive than a male doing that, you know, on their own, because they don't have the tools necessarily that the male has. So I mean, even though, you know, we expect the same from them, I think you could say that we do respect the female dogos that we have a little bit more, because they're not as big or as powerful, but they're still doing just as much of the work.
We like this, you know, a good female that is a good woods dogs and produces, respect,
That's
maybe
invaluable.
valued
Yeah,
a little bit more, because there are always going to be big studs that are catching boar hogs, you know, but to have a great female that produces, you know, pretty valuable.
Yeah.
Now, is there a difference in the type of terrain that you guys hunt, or is it just all kinds of terrain? And how do you prepare for any particular type of terrain?
We've hunted all over Texas, so that can change. That terrain can change, you know, to wide open areas, to hills, to thick, you know, cattle country or things like that.
Even kind of where we're at, you know, kind of being southeast of San Antonio, you kind of have that Gulf coastal kind of plains, a lot of thickets, a lot of cactus, a lot of thorns, kind of coming up and kind of running into what we call the sandhill country, where it's really just a bunch of like post oaks and sand hills. And at the same time too, you still kind of have some of that Flint Rock, South Texas, super brushy type country, and it all just kind of merges in this area. So I mean, even if we're hunting, you know, within 30 minutes from the house, whichever given direction, that could mean a whole different type of environment than, you know, somewhere else, also 30 minutes from the house. So, and some of the places we have, you know, some of the places we have on one side of it could be open, could be a lot of fields and timber. Then the back half of that place would just be a big thicket that's super thorny, you know, just a real pain to kind of get through.
You just always want to go in this situation with knowledge of the property, safety of you and your dogs, and just setting your dogs up for the best situation possible, always.
And Google Earth is a wonderful friend.
Always check out Google Earth to look for fence lines.
Yeah.
Now, do you feel as if there's a certain terrain that kind of like wears on your dogs more, like it really takes it out of them to get to certain spots, or just really beats them up versus like a different terrain, or is just they do go good in all terrains?
Well, I guess that also comes with exposure for your dog. The amount of exposure of dogs being, you know, catching hogs in super thick, thorny, cactusy areas, they're gonna catch a hog, you know, but maybe a dog that hasn't might hesitate for a moment.
As far as our dogs personally, I mean, the ones that we kind of always felt like we took the biggest beatings on is we go up north into the true hill country, you know, that kind of Caliche Rock area north of San Antonio. And
that's rough.
I mean, that'll wear down a dog, especially a bigger frame dog like a dogo. Running those hills up and down and just, you know, being on that rock, it'll eat at their feet a little while. But I mean, again, though, that's a part of it, and we expect our dogs to be successful in whatever situation we put them into. But yeah, I mean, whether it be the real bad thorny brush of South and West Texas, or, you know, kind of more agricultural areas where it's more field and timber type stuff, I mean, that's a lot more pleasant than having to go up and really kind of beat up the hill country trying to find a hog.
I mean, we all know that hunting with hogs can be dangerous and can kind of beat your dogs up sometimes. Are there any essentials that you guys take, like cut collars, cut vest, a first aid kit?
Well, as far as like first starting off with like cut gear protection for the dogs themselves, and a lot of people ask us about vests. Why don't we use a vest? What do we use instead? And I think too, you know, a large majority of dogs that get injured hog hunting, even when the injury comes from the hog itself, it's not so much the hog that did the damage as it is fatigue. I think fatigue really is like the biggest.
And hesitation.
Yeah, hesitation too. But I think that, you know, as far as a well-prepared dog that's well-rested, that knows how to handle a hog, a vest, you know, down here in South Texas is not needed, because that's going to be more of a hindrance than anything with the heat, and then with the amount of brush and just the terrain. It's not ideal. If running a vest on our dogs was ideal and we were still able to produce hogs at the rate we are now, we would absolutely, you know, be a fan of that. But what we do use, and it's worked out really well for us, is we've got a cut collar that we'll run on our dogs with the Garmin. We use a Garmin Alpha with a TT15 collar. That's the kind that you can shock and track at the same time. Now, when you use that on these cut collars, you've got to have the extra long prongs to kind of make sure that you get through that Kevlar. Yeah, you can see right there. You go with the extra longer ones instead of the short ones because they won't go through that level of Kevlar. You want to make sure you're getting a good contact, especially, if you're hunting a young dog around livestock. And we get asked a lot of times what these are. People see these in the picture, and this is just a little protective covering that we get from hardcore hoggers. It's plastic, just hard plastic with a little black rubber gasket that clips in. They're like $25, but like Buzzsaw this last week, he broke his fourth GPS collar and it makes sense because when you have a dog, their head's through here and they're leading with their mouth like they're supposed to, they're making that bite. When that hog turns around to engage them, the first thing that hog's nose is going to make contact with, if the mouth is here, and they're leading with it, is going to be this collar. So, I mean, we've had probably 7 or 8 collars since we started doing this get broken, with, like I said, Buzzsaw being 4 of them.
You can see the damage.
Yeah.
On these.
They've saved us a lot. They kind of help keep these collars going. But that's, for us, I mean, that's kind of worked out really well. And, I mean, not even so much as to knock on wood or anything. It's just we keep our dogs rested. We do what we can.
Keep them in condition because of the fatigue. And they do develop with exposure and repetition. They develop a style. They develop how to handle a hog, how to work their body. And that's things that we're learning, like with our young male right now, 8 months old. You could tell when he caught the hog, he's learning to work with the hog, but eventually he'll gain a style to where he's controlling that hog.
Yeah, and I think too, we try, even though we're hunting on foot, we're doing everything we can to read the dogs, understand when there's a situation where we think they're about to get into hogs, and do everything we can to be on them as fast as possible.
Get there as fast as
possible. We want the amount of time that our dogs engage with the hog to be as short as it can be. And, one, because it's humane, but two, I mean, the longer that dog's holding on to that hog, he's either going to lose that hog or he's going to take injuries while trying to hold it. So we do everything we can to be right on top of them.
Is there a time frame in which you guys have seen like a dog be caught on a hog for X amount of time and then you get there through all the brush and whatever and they're still caught on like 20, 30 minutes?
Yes, I mean that in 20, 30 minutes is about as long of a window as we've had. We really don't, I mean, it's not a matter of something that we're trying to hang our hat on that our dog will stay caught on a hog for over an hour in the woods. I mean, that's a great feature. If it happens one day, we'd probably tell somebody, but it's not our goal. Our biggest goal is for them to be able to find and catch their own hog. That's what we're asking of them. Everything after they have found and caught their own hog, that's on us. Now it's our turn to do our job and get there as fast as possible. I mean, we've had dogs they caught for up to 15, 20 minutes, half hours kind of pushing it after that, but and I think, too, that, like Ashley said, the more they find that holding style and the more comfortable they are, the less of an issue it is, the more they're able to preserve themselves. It's not – I think a lot of times the longer a dog stays caught, especially a dog like a dogo, their mind, and then they get to kind of not panicking, but their body really gets to pumping that lactic acid in the muscles. They get really kind of it's almost like a stressor type of situation. Even if the hog's not that big, there's a lot of harm that can come from leaving a dog engaged with a hog for a long period of time. Things that you don't think of maybe so much as the hog, not so much done by the hog, but the dog does it to themselves just because they're so amped up that it really leads to issues. You can really mess a dog up pretty fast by letting them engage for that long of a time.
Do you guys ever bring any medical equipment as far as like sutures or staples or so forth? Like if you get in a bad spot, you gotta kind of put your dog back together, so to speak.
Yeah, but I mean, with that being said, as far as like put our dogs back together, I mean, we do carry staple guns. We do carry septic powder, a towel, clean water, of course. But I mean, as far as anything kind of like what you're talking about, And I've just seen it a lot of times go wrong, where somebody kind of panics or gets in a hurry and they do like an infield remedy, some kind of like tailgate patch job, and they usually don't end up going as well as they would have if they would have cleaned the wound, done what they.
The pressure on the wound, it's really the big thing is you want to clean the wound and stop it bleeding and get the dog home as fast as possible. So then where you have all of your gear and all of your first aid kit. But yeah, that sometimes we discourage like the infield remedies, like you said. Get to a vet, get home.
I think a lot of people will staple a dog up or suture a dog up, you know, in the field. And a lot of times they haven't really done the best job they can of cleaning out the wound. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've seen that the dogs themselves, in most situations, their immediate health is not in danger. It's more important to get that wound cleaned out as thorough as possible, which you can do when you get to your house. You have a good source of unlimited water. You can, I mean, we've hosed out dogs for 15, 20 minutes, just making sure everything was as clean as possible. And then, you know, suture them up, make sure everything's, you know, disinfected and all that. But when you're just kind of trying to patch one in the field, you know, a couple specks of dirt or grass seed or something like that that gets, you know, left, it could really cause some big issues down the road.
Those are things that we always carry: water, towel, powder, stuff like that. Just to control cleanliness and bleeding is our main focus.
Do you guys happen to have an opinion on like hunting dogos with other animals, like hunting for like cattle or coyotes, coons?
I mean, I think that anytime you're spending with your dogo outside and you're following state and local regulations, that's a great deal. But I think too, though, you know, just from what we've seen, the dogo's not really geared for that. I mean, what the dogo is really geared perfectly for, you know, both, you know, mentally and physically, they are such natural hog dogs. It's what they were born to do. You know, they're a great athlete at this, and kind of taking that. And I mean, the dogo's computer, which is another reason why we, you know, love the breed like we do. They're very intelligent. I mean, you can teach a dogo to do other things, I'm sure. I just, you know, like you say, coyote. It's really hard to like consistently, I would think, to like be able to run down coyotes with the dogo on a continual basis. It's happened. We've had it happen, and I've seen other people that have had it happen too, but I don't know what your success rate. And again, I think that's going to be whoever the individual is, what their idea of goals is.
Yeah, what their end goal is.
Yeah.
What do you want at the end of that?
Yeah.
But we always tell people any outside activities that are safe and, you know, lawful, not reckless, is a great thing for dogos. Letting them stretch out, work their muscles, use that nose, tire themselves out. It's a happier and healthier dog.
With the term proven going about with a lot of hunters and people that have been around for a long time, what would you guys say would be the definition, your definition of proven?
Buzzsaw.
Yeah, we like to, when we're asked this question, we kind of gear it more towards it's non-existent. Proven is not a title that you just earn and then you're always proven. It is a day-to-day, proven to us is consistency. It's every day you are proving that you're a proven dog. It's consistency. It's being successful in all situations and scenarios. It's a term that is not just earned. It's earned every day. You have to prove yourself. And for example, I mean, we have a male, Buzzsaw. I mean, he has done many things on a consistent basis. Year round. But we like to more gear that towards consistency. It's does this hog find and catch its own, or does this dog find and catch his own hog every week?
I think kind of too, going into that with you know, proven, I would really like to see a lot of these dogo people that are hunting dogs and you know, maybe not necessarily hunting like we hunt, but just hunting their dogs, period, using them as catch dogs or whatever. I would really like to see a lot of them maybe do more as far as campaigning their dogs. There's not a whole lot of Dogo people out there that are, you know, they'll show the hogs they catch, they'll mention the dogs they have, but I mean, if you have a dog that you think is proven or that you think is up to the top quality, I mean, nobody's really going around and promoting their dogs in a way to where it's, you know, you kind of have a base. You know where to go to if you're looking for a proven hard hunting Dogo somewhere. You know, like over 10 years ago, I went hunting. There was a bunch of cur dogs. It was kind of a big group hunt, and there was 3 Dogos on that hunt from 3 different Dogo people. And all 3 were these, you know, kind of 3-year-old or older Dogo males. They were all considered very much so proven from what they had done before. And I mean, we had a hog bayed not very far from us, and we turned all 3 loose, and we had the hog caught and killed before any of those Dogos ever made it to that hog. I just, you know, proven one night doesn't necessarily mean proven the next night or the night after that. Like Ashley said, it's a continual state that you have to earn. You're always working towards that.
Have you guys ever lost any dogs out in the woods, and how do you bounce back from that?
I mean, fortunately, we've been lucky. In all the times we've done this, which I mean, we go probably over 100 times a year. We've done that for at least the last 5 years. We've only really had one hunt that kind of ended with us losing a dog, and it was a really bad situation. He was a really great dog. Was kind of really, as far as the hunting aspect, was miles ahead of anything that and he came from our first litter. So I mean, to like have one that automatic, you know, that early into the program and then lose them, that was kind of rough. But
it kind of goes back to us keeping multiples out of litters as well. And we always try to be strategic in our, I guess, group of what we're taking. You know, if we only have 2 sisters from a litter, we might not take them on the same hunt. So we are able to bounce back as kind of the insurance.
Yeah.
What advice would you guys give to a novice Dogo owner that's wanting to get their Dogo into hunting? Whether it be they've been hunting for X amount of years and they just got Dogos, or they're just got Dogos as pet dogs and they want to see what their Dogo can do.
I mean, first off, just whatever you're doing, you know, whichever one of those scenarios, just hunt your dog as much as possible. Just consistently.
Get on the ground with your dog. You know your dog better than anyone. Get on the ground with them. Of course, you know, safety and know the land and carry water. But get on the ground with your dog, and exposure and repetition are just the 2 biggest things that you can do to start pulling that out of your dog. And get out there as much as possible, outdoors with them as much as possible.
Set them up for success. You really want to, you want the first couple experiences to be as positive as possible. Yes. You know, really no exposure or no really expectations, just kind of giving them that exposure, letting them figure things out on their own and kind of figure out how much they want to participate.
Yeah, yes, giving them the opportunity. You just want to give them the opportunity to show you what they want to do. You don't have to interact with them a whole bunch. You don't have to encourage them. You don't have to put a whole bunch of pressure on them. Just get them out moving and just see what happens.
All right.
That's why we're fans of walk hunting as well. I mean, it teaches you so much.
Gives you the opportunity to bond with your dogs.
Yeah, the bond and just to know what they're doing. To know what they're doing is huge.
Okay, I've got a couple questions here that have come in.
Okay.
Yeah.
They may not be in order. So I'll just go from the top down to the bottom. A little more detail on the proper head size, please.
I guess the ratio is 1 to 1.
Yeah. I think it was the Diana article that Daniel, who's translated it, does a really good job of kind of like getting into the fine details of the skull structure. Much better than we could right here kind of recite that back. But I mean, the head shape and the head size is really important. And I mean, not to say you just know, but I mean, when you see a dogo head, a proper dogo head, you know what you're looking at. I mean, there's some great examples out there for sure.
Yeah, the skull to muzzle ratio, you know, you don't want your muzzle to be too short or excessively long. The bite, powerful jaws.
It seemed like, you know, when I was talking about the earlier dogos 15 years ago, there really wasn't that shape. It was just a cinder block on top of a big white body. I mean, their heads would be, you know, this wide, and then they would have that kind of shorter muzzle that you didn't want. I mean, you could almost show them in an American Bulldog show, and they would have fit the standards.
Things in the writing, whatever, the concave, convex, the way the nose comes down, but the way that the head is rounded. But yes, definitely check out that article. There's all kinds of details. He spent a lot of time talking about the head, and that's kind of why it's so important to us. I mean, we like to think of dogos as big game hounds with superior heads and superior jaws of all dogs.
What is your ideal temperament of a dogo?
Well, I mean, I guess that kind of differs too on what you're wanting your yard to be, or what your goal is. But I mean, we look for super laid back. I mean, we really want a dog that when they're not on, which another thing we talk about a lot is the light switch. And
Yes.
when our dogs are in the woods, they can be as on as they want to be. And a lot of that too, temperament goes hand in hand with you know, exercise and mental stimulation. Where, you know, if that dog has an outlet, if there's something that dog can burn all their energy and kind of focus on, gives them something to kind of focus on, then when you take that dog out of that environment and put them back into their home environment, they're much more stable.
The dogo is a working animal. So that drive, that prey drive, that energy, that strength is going to be in your dog. You just need to give them a purpose and an outlet for that. So yes, I mean, hunting dogos, we can almost see that light bulb, that mental change in them that, oh, you know, when I have these feelings, that's what I use that towards. I enjoy, you know, being in the woods and chasing these animals, and that's what I gear those to. So when I'm home, I'm off and I'm laid back and I can be a part of the team. And that's kind of what we look for. We, you know, human friendly, they need to be able to have a landowner walk up on our truck and stick his hand in the window and pet him on the head and that be okay. At home, I do tell people that they are more territorial of your home place. So we don't want a dog that somebody can drive up and, you know, get them in the truck, you know, but
At the same time in the woods. I mean, at the end of the day, you're splitting hairs a little bit there.
yeah, it is different when you're not on your home place. It seems like the dogs are turned off a little bit on the territorial because we're not on home turf. When we're on home turf, it's a little bit more protectiveness, territorial, but we need them to be able to be like, it's okay, this person's invited. But yeah, I mean, we're always looking for drive, but we are definitely looking for that intelligence to where that switch comes off. But like Andrew said, it really does, the amount of work that or outlet and work and hours that you give your dog, you get good results back out of them. They're happier and healthier mentally as well when they're drained.
I think some dogo people might say that our dogs are, if anything, a little bit too turned down for what they want. But I mean, again, though, that's because we have such a big outlet and there's such a clear, you know, thing that we want them to focus on that, you know, the rest of it's more, we want them just as stable as possible if they're not doing that.
Have the temperaments in your program been pretty stable or consistent, or have you had to like work with other dogs more so than others?
I think if anything, just it, you know, with some of the other dogs and breeds that I've owned and kind of hunted with, I think that it's much more natural in the dogo's nature to kind of be, you know, a little bit at peace on the yard, you know, or while hunting. They're not really fight starters, or at least the ones that we've hunted. You know, they don't really go looking for trouble. If they have a clear target, something that they're working towards, and everything else, I mean, it's a really, for as many dogs as we have and have gone through and raised, I mean, it's always been a pretty stable yard. There's never kind of been that, when you have dogs that are troublemakers, that are causing issues, you know, it's almost not fun you don't want to be around that environment because you're always having to be watching and then you're waiting for something to go wrong. And with our dogs, you know, we've really been fortunate in that aspect that we haven't really been on pins and needles waiting for a fight, because, you know, as long as everybody's kind of got their own area, they're allowed to kind of chill out and be there. We don't put them in a situation to where they have to feel like they need to be territorial. We give them their own space.
And I think this is something that we engrave in at least our yard from a very early age. They're all raised up as a group. We, you know, have a lot of just yard time. Everybody, you know, so they can, if they don't want to be around anybody, they can go off by themselves, or they can be social, you know, and we just try to make it as easygoing and as positive as possible. We don't want those negative interactions. It throws the whole yard off.
Yeah.
How do you evaluate young pups for what is an ideal temperament or disposition? What kind of exposure do you give them to make sure you're supporting that behavior prior to getting them on a hog?
Well, I guess we do a lot of, we're big live scenario. There's no gimmies, nothing's easy, all natural. So we just like to see what they're, you know, they don't have to interact if they don't want to. We like to see that natural state of what these dogs are. So we really look for their reactions to things like getting on hogs or in the woods, of just what their natural automatic state is. I think that's huge for us.
I think as far as the part of the question that deals with like temperament and things like that, I think that it really is in a dogo's like true nature. A dogo that's true to itself and the breed is very much wanting an alpha. They don't want to be in control. They want some kind of guidance. They want somebody or something to look at and know that they're in charge, and then they just kind of put their trust towards that. So I mean, with our young dogs growing up, you know, we never kind of put them in a situation where they feel that they have to, again, either be territorial or you know, claim, you know, you have that either food aggression or whatever. We, at a very early age, we let them, you know, kind of realize that they will be taken care of, their needs will be met. They don't have to compete for anything. And because of that, you know, it's more of a laid back atmosphere growing up. We don't put them in a situation where they have to challenge each other or challenge other dogs in order to get what they want. Everybody's kind of treated the same and has their own area.
Of course, we have some that are more bouncier than the others, or, you know, some high drive pups than others. But yeah, I mean, it's just all about that natural state of what they are. Let them tell you what they are.
Are there any behaviors or things that you see that make you automatically make that decision that you will not keep or not keep that dog in that moment?
I mean, everything's hunting. Hunting's the biggest part of our program. That's what we're looking for. I mean, if a dog's got bad traits that we can't seem to shake, you know, off the hunting, that's more kind of directed on the yard, how they act. I mean, of course, dog aggression is a fast way for us to decide that we don't want to work with that dog. People aggression is obviously, which, I mean, you know, luckily for us, we really haven't seen anything that would gear towards that. But I mean, yeah, if a dog's got a bad kind of wiring and is just set up to a point where it can't work with others, then, you know, obviously we're going to look to not use that dog for our program. But I mean, again, though, the more comfortable the dog is from the beginning, and the more you kind of give it structure and boundaries, then the less issues you have like that.
How many dogs do you presently have in your program?
We have 8 Dogos right now that are kind of in the program. And then, of course, Bluto, but he doesn't count. He's our mascot at this point. He just hangs out inside.
Do you guys have a size for your Dogo that you like to stay within?
A size?
Yeah, it's like a build or a size that you want your Dogo to stay within?
I mean, we like to always say under 100 pounds, especially for our males. But we have a male now that is probably high 80s, low 90s. And I mean, that seems to be about the perfect size for what we're trying to do with our Dogos. I guess around our females, low 80s has been nice.
Yeah, maybe high 70s on some, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's more about the design than like putting a weight to it. And we go for like the streamlined kind of working, like when you see them, you know they're a working type dog. They have the kind of muscles that you get from running in open ground repeatedly kind of built up. And I think that, I mean, you can't do anything once a dog is born to change their structural makeup. I wouldn't say that we're doing that, but it just seems like the way we grow our pups and the amount of opportunity they have to really kind of stretch out their muscles. It's not that they grow different than other dogos, but you get more of kind of like that streamlined design. I mean, obviously you want to breed athletic dogos to make athletic dogos, but even in the way you raise your pups has a lot to do with how that dog is going to look as an adult.
It's really just the balance of that dog rather than a number on the scale. And can they hold up to this physical activity?
I see that, Andrew, I've read your articles in Tusker magazine. How many times have you been published?
4 times in Tuskers, I think, and once in, it was kind of what was before Tuskers, which was Bayed Solid. That was kind of the big hog hunting magazine back in the day before Tuskers, but I think 5 times altogether. But it's just something that we do just to kind of, it's fun for us.
So we're just promoting the dogo, really, just campaigning what we're trying to do and promote the dogo, that they're capable hunting dogs.
Do you see that there's any issues, if any, you have experienced with your dogos?
Issues as far as?
Well, I guess, I mean, they all go through like a funky adolescent stage where they get maybe a couple hot spots here or there. But we've actually been pretty lucky on that. Not too much for skin issues. Of course, when you're going through an entire litter, there's going to be some pups that are better than others, or some pups that start more natural and engage a hog right away, some that might not need a little bit more patience. So I guess we're finding that out, but that's just kind of sorting through pups.
Temperament. I mean, they're a very stable dog. They really are. For as many of the red flags that were associated with the breed, 15 years ago, where they are now, I think that Dogo breeders kind of around the United States, have done a much better job. I think that's something else, just kind of real quick too. You don't have to get, if you're planning on getting a Dogo for like a working prospect, a good Dogo working prospect for hunting doesn't necessarily have to come from Texas or Oklahoma or Louisiana or Florida. I mean, there really are people around the country that are doing, and a lot of folks, even just as owners without breeding, that want to be true to the breed and show their dog a hog a couple times and kind of maybe go on hunts. But a good Dogo can be found anywhere. Don't feel like you have to get a hunting Dogo from a hunting line if that's not available. Just like I said, always have a goal in your mind of what you're trying to work for, and then set yourself up for success that way. But there's a lot of people out there, certainly yourself included, that are doing their part. And I mean, to drive cross country like you do to get your Dogos on hogs, it's very admirable of you, and definitely staying true to the breed. But I mean, there's a lot of great Dogo people out there that are making them. They don't have to come from a hard-working yard. You can find a good Dogo prospect, in a lot of places nowadays.
Now that the Dogo is fully recognized by AKC, do you plan on showing any of your dogs?
Yeah, I mean, we've always participated in the DACA specialties. I guess now that they're AKC, that if there's a show close, we could participate. But I mean, hunting is our main focus, but we would definitely participate. I don't know if we would, our dogs sometimes are kind of wild, but
well,
if we got a good one, we would try.
Yeah, it's good to do. It's good to support the breed and support other people that are showing the dog and building that database of what a structurally sound Dogo should be. We stick out like a sore thumb. We took Bubba last year, and Bubba,
we think he's huge,
and then we took a monster, and he was the smallest dog in the class by about 20 pounds. So it's just a different type of Dogo.
It is a different type. But I think it's good to put working dogs out there. I mean, they need to be seen. And I think that maybe right now, like you said, we're on a 4th litter. We've been in this for 6 years. I think we're just waiting on that dog. You know, we're waiting to breed that dog. That's like, we need to show that dog. That dog needs to be seen. But yeah, I mean, we'll always participate in the specialty.
What do you guys specifically look for or expect on a first true hunt, be it being from a puppy or from your more mature dogs?
I guess if we always start our pups, like we just call them little field trips. You know, so our pups have usually been in the woods before with other pups as a group field trip. But if we're taking a young dog on a real like night hunt where he is in a position to see a hog, all we want is just a little bit of interest. We're not looking, just a little bit of participation. We just want them to participate. We just want to see some acknowledgement. That's really what we're looking for, that they are interested, they want to participate, but we've been surprised sometimes where we see a dog turn on right away and get to the head, maybe they don't lock down, but they're interested, they want to engage. I think that's and they're able to participate as much as they want or they don't want. We're just looking for interest. We want to see the wheels turning. We want to see engagement.
You want it to be as smooth of a transition as possible. And I think something kind of going back to what we talked about earlier about why we start our pups so young and kind of start getting them into that role versus older. I mean, a dogo is bred to have that sense of kind of discipline and eagerness to please. So a lot of times with dogos that got started, older, that a lot of dogos that I've seen that are over a year old and on their first couple hunts, they see it and they register it, and everything that they're seeing, they're evaluating and they're really interested. But you can see it, clear as day, that the first thought in their mind is like, am I going to get in trouble for this? Am I allowed to do this? It's not so much that they're scared of what's going on. They just think that if they participate in it, like there's going to be negative reactions. So, I mean, they're very much gauging the owner or the handler that they're with and kind of watching to see if what they're about to do is okay. And there's some dogs that, they're 2 or 3 years old, first time they see a hog, they're going to slam it, and they don't care one way or another how you think about it. It's just what they're geared to do. But I do think that the longer you wait on a dog, like you take a dog that you've been putting such a handle on and programming them to be in your house and to be around your kids and your family, and then you start hunting that dog, don't be surprised when their first reaction is, am I going to get in trouble for this? Is this okay? And there's that hesitation there. Don't confuse that with them not having the instinct to do it. They've just been geared their whole life to obey you and to make you happy. They want to please you. So they're not 100% sure that you're actually wanting them to do this. This goes against everything that you've ingrained into that dog from the time they were a pup, to not, be aggressive and to not attack something. So you've got to kind of break that wall down a little bit. And again, it just goes with just being natural, just allowing things to take place on their own time, and just allowing for as smooth of a transition into that woods dog as possible.
And I think it just kind of shows the difference in raising, we are raising hunting dogs. So they, usually when they see their first hog, they know what the woods are. They know, there's other dogs around. It's, everything has led up to this point besides the hog. And so when the hog is there, that's all we're looking for, is just some kind of engagement for that. But yes, there is a difference between raising hunting dogs and a companion that's been in your house, and then you try to, put them on a hog. There might be a hesitation there.
You really don't want your reaction to kind of swing real hard one way or another. If the dog does do great and is automatic and it just goes in there and slams it, I mean, you want to give them praise, you want to give them positive feedback, but you don't want to overly do it, because then you're still kind of sending signals to that dog that you might not necessarily be wanting to send with the amount of excitement that you're giving. Everything's calm.
Yes.
Everything is very much like, what you're doing is okay, and we're really glad that you're doing this, but you're not making it the biggest deal in the world. You're just kind of giving them a little bit of positive reinforcement. Same thing if they're not, if they're hesitant. You don't want to make it worse by being, overly animated. Just calm.
Yes. calm and just natural.
Is there a particular brand of dog food that you guys feed your dogos, or is it just kibble, raw?
We've probably fed every dog food possible, but we've been feeding Diamond High Energy for a while now, and it's been doing pretty good. Everybody seems to be doing well on it. And of course, we supplement with raw when we can get our hands on it, you know, red meats and chicken, eggs, leftovers sometimes, you know, if somebody owns it. But yeah, Diamond High Energy is the kind of the kibble that we've been sticking to, and then supplementing with raw, and it's kind of fed as a meal replacement.
I think some of the problems that we see in the breed is that there's people that, and they're doing it with absolutely the best intentions, but you're almost like feeding rocket fuel to like basic commuter car. You know,
Yeah.
you wouldn't do that. So I think a lot of dogos out there that, you know, are maybe in like a 1 or 2 dog family situation, you know, you want to give them the best nutritional value possible. But if you're feeding them and you're supplementing them with these super rich type of feeds, I think that a dog that's not burning that off, that doesn't have anything to kind of put that energy towards, one, it's like feeding a kid a bunch of like highly energized foods and then keeping them sitting on the couch all day. You're going to get, you know, maybe kind of characteristic problems that you're going to get a restless dog that wants to do something. And I think too, just that many, you know, that high, a rich nutrient driven diet being broken down with a dog that doesn't really need it, I think you can also get to some kind of health issues too. And I think that's why we see, you know, dogos that are overweight or dogos that are blowing their coats out because they're fed way rich of a diet that they don't really need. I think that you can feed a dog not a base dog food, but something like Diamond High Energy that's not really considered a premium. It's a decent. It's not a super premium kibble, but it's something that they can kind of burn off at a slow rate.
Mixing it up with some other stuff as well.
I think that you can always judge it by what's coming out the back end of your dog, and I think that you know, if you're getting more than 1 or 2, you know, kind of poops a day, regardless of the dog's age, you know, once they get out of that puppy stage, then maybe you're feeding a little bit too much or you're feeding a little bit too rich than what you need to.
Now, you guys have said buzzsaw and talked about them a couple of times. Can you go ahead and tell us about the names of your other dogs in your kennel?
Well, I mean,
this is a game for us now.
Yeah, it's just been kind of fun to kind of stick with the B thing. And I know that, you know, traditionally in all dog breeds, every litter you change the letter, and it's been fun. Yeah,
but it's just become something that we can get done, or something that we want to try to get done. And we have bee name lists all over the house.
Yeah.
But so we have Buzzsaw, and his son is Bolt Cutter.
And Bubba, his other son.
Bubba, just because he reminded us of a big Bubba. He's a big old block-headed kind of goofy dog, so we just started calling him Bubba. And then the girl names, we try to kind of give them girly. We've had Blight was a cool one. Yeah. We have Bitter now, Brash, Brienne.
Banshee, of course.
Banshee.
Which, I mean, Banshee kind of ruined us all the way around, just with everything. Having this, you know, kind of 1 in a million type dog that we picked up from Flying G, and just, you know, when we named her Banshee, it was just like, well, every dog after that's going to probably be a B name.
So yeah, we just like to stick with the B names. B name Del DeGueo.
Yeah.
Are you guys ever afraid of running out of B names?
No.
Well, now it's become a challenge, so no. And then like friends and family, like, will randomly text us or message us like, hey, I saw this B name on a TV show, or I saw this word of the day and it was a B name, or yeah, I mean, we were at a gas station pump and there was a word of the day and it was some kind of B name, and I was like, dog name.
Yep.
But yeah, we just started with the B names, but we'll see. Maybe we'll do like
maybe in like 20 years we'll start running out, but
we'll do like a theme, like a movie theme or something, and we'll switch it up. But we've got a long list of B names before that comes. So feel free to send us some B names.
Do your dogs get acclimated to the Texas heat easily?
That we thought when we first started this that was going to be a big issue, was that the heat tolerance. I mean, and just saying, we do hunt year round, just to kind of
Yes.
hit on it again, and you kind of have to. I mean, summertime in Texas is basically 5 months, and then you have deer season coming in November. So I mean, we hunt year round. You can't find an excuse not to. So to do that, we really got to make sure our dogs are acclimated to the heat. And the biggest thing about that, which Ashley kind of touched on earlier, is we constantly keep them in condition. Our dogs are always staying into a place to where, you can take them out that day. And then quality of rest is a big deal.
Yes, shade, clean water. That really does them well. But yes, they are acclimated to the heat. Of course, we don't want to take them in the middle of the afternoon, but if there's hogs there and we get a call, our dogs are conditioned to where we can load up and go.
I think the hottest that it's been that we've caught a hog has been 98 so far. And that was something that we weren't planning on going. It was an abrupt situation. There was a storm moving in, and then at the last minute, instead of cooling everything down, it just kind of barely missed us. And by the time we saw that it had missed us, we already had dogs on the ground. But I mean, yeah, we typically try to set them up for the best situation possible.
But we always know where good tanks are. Creeks are, sometimes not a lot of creeks will stay, keep water too much, but we always know where a source of water is to get them quickly, and we carry water with us, and keeping them conditioned to where they're hunting two, three times a week, or at least getting out for a run, 2-3 times a week. That's keeping them in condition, and they tend to be able to regulate themselves. But you always want to know your dogs, keep an eye on them.
Just kind of a real quick, added bonus to hunting an all dogo pack. I think a lot of times when people run dogos on the ground and they get in trouble, is you have like a cur type dog or a hound type dog that's a little bit more rangier. He's got a much bigger gas tank, and that dogo going back and forth between that dog and you, or that dog and where they naturally would be. I think you burn up a dogo a lot faster that way.
There's a lot less waste with the all dogo pack.
Everybody's about at the same, tolerability for heat. So, if they all cool down for a little bit and they all go back to work, but you don't have one dog that's having other dogs go back and forth to it and just burning up unneeded energy.
Are there any particular pedigrees or bloodlines, such as kennels, that you are willing to share on your dogos that you either have on your yard or that you just like in general?
Well, I mean, just kind of, we'll break it down as simple as we can. We started out with those 2 females from Flying G. They were both out of a Cazador Creole male, different moms, but they were out the same Cazador Creole male who, Walicho, Oklahoma, caught a lot of hogs, hundreds of hogs for the Stacys. We bred that first female to a Lacocha male who was a Fune's son, and I think his mother on that end was a Lonco daughter, Lonco sister, Lonco littermate sister. And I mean, it was really nice old school Lacocha blood. We crossed that with Cazador Creole. That made for the buzzsaw litter, which, I mean, we kept 3 males out of that litter, and all 3 were really natural hunters, good dogs. We've been kind of breeding around that ever since.
And then we added a little bit more of, is it Calfacura, which is basically kind of line bred Lacocha with the Medanos.
Yeah, the Calfacura Medanos female that we picked up from Darrell Parks. I mean, and that was kind of a situation. I mean, this dog came from the suburbs of Chicago, and Darrell travels all over and works his dogs as much as he can. I mean, she was brought in and just has a lot of natural hunt and just perfect balance and structure. Just a really nice
temperament as
yeah,
well.
really kind of what we would consider an ideal female. A little bit more basier than what we want in our working dogs.
But perfect for our.
Yeah, perfect to cross into. Perfect, exactly what we needed to kind of bring onto the yard. So, I mean, what we've got now and what we're kind of working towards, I guess you could say would be considered like a quarter Lacocha, quarter Medanos, quarter Calfacura, which is basically just even tighter Lacocha, and then a little bit of that Cazador Creole in there. And they draw a little bit from all that. But I mean, as far as other dogs that we've owned and seen, I mean, we had a half El Mate female from Kevin Atkins, and just the most easiest starting female dog that we've had, hands down, just supernatural starting. That El Mate line, you hear a lot about that, about how that is just a very, they're geared a little bit different than, your typical house dogo, but they are very, very easy starters. They want to work. They want combat. So,
As far as sharing, well, of course, we're breeding for ourselves. We feel like, we probably, we would probably the ideal dogo yard hunting all the time. But as far as sharing, down the line for sure.
I see that you've added some new blood, fancy from the PPC lines. What are your future plans?
Well, that was more of just kind of like a situation to where the gentleman had her. He was, I think they were moving, so he kind of wanted to make room, and it was more of just a really kind of cool bloodline
Hands
dog.
on
Yeah.
old world dogo.
Yeah.
We just brought her to a yard full of dogos, and
Yeah.
we're just gonna see what happens. We don't have a tight plan just yet.
More of a retirement home for her than anything. Not at all necessarily going to keep that, put that into our breeding program. And she's 9.
Yeah, they're just turned 8 or something.
Yeah,
She's old.
Yeah, not something probably that we're going to do as far as that. But again, too, though, when we've got some really, really nice quality females in our yard right now that I think that will be used more in our program, that kind of gear towards what we're wanting.
I think we found a really good stud out of our first litter, being buzzsaw, and so we're just trying to build up our base, our foundation for Degueo dogos out of that.
Yeah.
And see what the best is we can get out of that. But right now we're just working through those pups.
Are there any lines or kennels that you guys like out of Europe?
Out of Europe, we really don't know a whole lot. Like I said, Cazador Creole is kind of where Banshee goes back into.
And then that, where Bundy came from, we can appreciate those dogs. We don't really know too much about them yet, but.
That Alpha Fiera, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are really nice looking
Croatia.
dogs. Yeah.
Those are some, we can appreciate those dogs and those builds, and they seem like they definitely have a type. We haven't really messed with them much. Like I said, we're currently raising a pup. But yeah, so that's kind of what we did when, we, through Brienne getting that Vedanos and the Bundy dog from Usury. Right now, we want to raise those bloodlines and just see what we like. That's kind of where we are with that.
Not at all knocking Europe or Argentina or any of that. There's some great world-class dogs in all those places. But I think that right now, with everything that has happened in the last 5 or 6 years, there are some really world-class dogos in America. And I think people that look to import, if you want to import and you have something that's exactly what you like, go for it. But really, there's a dogo out there to fit just about anybody's needs here in America that you can find that'll be a good, healthy prospect from good working lines.
I think we're just working down to our type and our ideal state.
Yeah.
Is another way to say it.
All right, we're going to be wrapping up here. Again, our final question. So for us that live in God's country, AKA Canada, we are now stuck here and cannot get to America with our dogs. What can we do? My dog takes down any gopher and bird that can get their lips on. Do you suggest the dog start for us that are stuck?
Well, I guess that it kind of goes back to like what is your end goal and what do you want your dog to be able to do or what are you trying to do with that dog? But just especially in somewhere as beautiful as Canada, I'm sure there's all kinds of places that you can just take that dog to and just let them be a dog. Just have that. It makes the transition so much easier. If a dog feels confident in the woods, that's going to translate to wherever that dog is. If you have a dog that you can take to Canadian woods, let them run around for an hour or two and they can feel like they're comfortable, that they know that they're looking for something. When you bring that dog to a place that has hogs years later, whenever things open back up and you can show it a hog, you'll be that much further ahead. Just any interaction with your dogo out in nature, it's always a great experience. Just be safe.
Well, were there any other questions that you guys wanted to add in or put your thoughts in on?
No, I mean, we just really appreciate that y'all wanted to hear from us or are interested in what we're trying to do here. It's a really laid back type of program. We just like to be super transparent in what we're trying to do and campaign. The campaign, I guess, Buzzsaw as a what currently we think is our ideal dogo for right now. And just promoting that the dogo is capable and a practical hunting dog.
And just because it is a Dogo webinar series and there will be 7 more speakers to come, it's something that I want to kind of add in there and see where everybody else, I would like to know the other 7 that come after us, if they agree or disagree on this. It's just, we feel like, even in the 6 years that we've been in the breed, but like I say, even going back further to back when I remember seeing the beginning of the dogo kind of in South Texas, it's just, as a breed in general, we're much better off than we were. I think dogos are going in the right direction for sure. And I think a lot of that is due to because the people that are in the breed are so passionate and they want what's best for these dogs and everybody. It just really seems like there's a big sense of people wanting to do things the right way within this breed. And there's a lot of self-policing. There's a lot of, kind of communication that you don't really get in other working breeds. And I think that as a group, the Dogo community is a very strong group. And I think that if they work together and channel that passion, the same way, and everybody kind of gets on the same page as what's the best thing for these dogs. I think, with us going AKC, there's going to be a lot more popularity with the breed now. And I think that the Dogo community right now is a great base to start into to make sure that we keep going in the right direction. But like I've said for years now, I think the Dogo is only getting better. I think that everybody's been doing a wonderful job of making as good a quality dog as they can. And the Dogo now is as I see it, a stable temperament dog with good hunting instincts that really has a high drive to please their owner. And that's kind of what we're just working to kind of preserve and make it as great as we can. But just really kind of love the Dogo community and the people that have been coming in and becoming a part of this.
We'd love to, if we ever get a group of veteran Dogos, on our yard, we'd love to do a tour and go, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, do a little tour like that. I feel like we've met so many great people doing this. The Dogo community is strong, and I think it's good for the Dogo.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we appreciate y'all doing this and wanting to hear from us. Thank y'all.
I wanted to extend my gratitude to you guys as well, and just thank you for being so honest and open-minded to go ahead and take this interview.
Oh no, it's great.
Yeah, we're glad that y'all are doing this. This is a great opportunity for the breed. I think
with the Dogo going AKC, there's all kinds of opinions about that, but I think being open and honest is probably the best thing that we can all do for the breed.
All right, that is a wrap.
Yeah, thank y'all so much.
Thank y'all.
I have one of those movie clips I go action.
Well, thank y'all, and
yeah, everybody have a good
happy
Sunday.
hunting
Thank y'all.
and happy Dogos.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.